There's an awesome new state manager in town from the founder of Prisma, and this one comes with real-time sync that works on nearly every platform, whether that's web, iOS, or Android. If you're wanting to build the next local first hit like Notion or Linear, this one might be for you. Meet LiveStore, a next-generation state management framework based on Reactive SQLite and Git-inspired syncing. Seeing is believing, so let's jump straight into a demo. This here is a simple-to-do app, except for the fact that it's using durable objects from Cloudflare for the WebSockets and D1 for persistent storage, except I haven't had to think of any of that, thanks to the fact that I'm using LiveStore. We go ahead and type in a to-do that you should all be doing, like subscribing to this channel, and add in a load more here. You can see that everything is updated super quickly. We can tick this and untick this as many times as we want, and we can delete loads of these without having to worry about any loading states or optimistic updates, thanks to the fact that this is all local first. We don't need that idea of optimism, as that server sync comes in later, and I'll show you how that process works in a bit. You can also see here, if I refresh the page, everything is stored and persisted, and the same goes if I filled in this input field here, refresh the page, it is all stored there, so it's a super nice user experience. You don't have that pain of when someone refreshes by accident and they've lost all of their data. We get that same great user experience across our clients as well. On one side here, I have a tab opened in my normal browser, then I have Chrome open in an incognito window, but we're connected to the exact same stores. You can see as I delete here, everything is updated on that side really quickly, and as I add things, it is updated super fast over there as well. Now the input here isn't synced up, as I've chosen not to sync that up. Let's jump into the code then and see how all of this is set up. Now everything in LiveStore starts with the schema file. In here we define our derived state, essentially our SQLite tables. As you can see in here, I have one called to-dos. It's a pretty normal table setup, SQLite.table. But then down here I have one that's a little bit more interesting, which is SQLite.clientDocument. This one defines my local only state. So in here I'm managing my new to-do text, which was simply that input field, which as I mentioned earlier, wasn't synced up across our sessions. It was only stored on the client that was using it, but it also had persistence. When we refreshed the browser, the input field stayed with the text that it had in it. So that's managed here with this client document. And you can actually choose on the client document as well, whether you do want to sync that across your client sessions without syncing it up to the database. So there's a lot of freedom that you get in this library to do what you want with your data. Once we've defined our derived state, we then have our events. Now this is what describes the data changes. As you can see here, we have one for to-do created. We have events.synced, which means it's going to be synced to the database and across all of the sessions. And then we also give this a nice name. So this one is v1.todo created. And then you see we pass in a schema as well, which just says what information does this event need. In this case, it's going to be an ID and then also text, which is going to be the text of the to-do that's been created. And you also see with these ones like deleted, all we need is that ID and then also the deleted at time. And it looks pretty simple. We're just describing what we're doing on that event. It's pretty much our CRUD operations. And you can see it again on our UI state, which is stored locally. We just have tables.ui state.set, and that's going to handle it for us. And that's a nice helper that we get from the LiveStore library. This event log system is super cool. Essentially, all of our data modifications are captured as an immutable ordered sequence of events. This event log then serves as your history, and you can actually reliably reconstruct your state from this history log. Think of it like Git commits. This also really helps out when you want to debug things, as you can see all of the state changes as they occurred. The Reactive SQLite state is then a projection of what this event log has stored in it. Once we have our events, what we do is we create our materializers. This is how we map those events to the state in the database. As you can see here, we use the name for the event itself. Then we take in the schema, so the ID and text that we passed through earlier. And then we essentially say, what do we actually want to do with the database when we get this event? If you've used something like Redux before, think of this like the action type, and then this actual materializer, sort of like the reducer where you're actually running the logic itself. So once we've got our schema with the tables, events, and materializers, the next thing you're going to need is the web worker, and this is pretty boilerplate code, so I'll skip over this bit. And also if you're using React here, you're going to need the LiveStore provider so that you can use LiveStore in the rest of your application. The important bit though is inside of our components where we want to retrieve the data and also update it. Now to retrieve data, what we need to do is create a query using QueryDB. As you can see here, I have a list of visible to-dos, and this is using QueryDB. Inside of here, we can actually get the filter from the UI state itself. So this is a filter based on all of them or whether they're completed or not. And then you can see we can simply return the tables.todos and then our where they're not deleted and also where they equal to the filter that we want. So that is going to be our list of to-dos that we get back. And we can also give this a label of visible to-dos. Then down in here, all we need to do to actually get that is just say visible to-dos equals store.useQuery and then the visible to-dos query that we just created. I feel like I'm saying query quite a lot. As you can see here though, the store is actually coming from the useStore hook, which we're now able to use thanks to the LiveStore provider that you wrapped your application in. Then when we want to use these visible to-dos, this is essentially just now state in our application, so we can just map over this and then render them how you would in normal React. When you want to update the data, aka commit an event, that's really simple as well. Now that we have the store from the useStore hook, we can simply say store.commit and then the event that we want to commit and pass through the data that we need for that as well, which is all going to be type safe thanks to our schema. In this case, we're saying if it's completed, we're going to pass through the events.todo uncompleted with the ID. Otherwise, use the todo completed event. And you can see if I go ahead and delete this, that we have that list of events that we've already set up. So we get nice type safe and autocomplete in our IDE there. If you like what you've seen so far, I highly recommend you check out the documentation. It has a few more use cases and also some data patterns you might want to follow. And you can also see how it works. As it says here on the client, we have our state, which renders our UI. Our UI can then commit events. Those events materialize into our database, and we follow in that loop. Then we have the syncing part. So when we create a new event, what happens is it pushes up to our sync backend. Then it also makes sure to pull in the new events so that we are up to date, similar to how you would with Git. When you want to push something new, you also need to make sure that you're pulling so you have the latest changes. Then you can see we also have that server-side logic where we have our database, and that syncs up from the sync backend. There we go. Let me know what you think. Would you use this on your next project? While you're down in the comments, subscribe, and as always, see you in the next one.